Hello and welcome to Undercommon Taste. This is a podcast where we create and discuss homebrew content for tabletop RPGs.
A gift for you. I found it in the snow, fragile beauty, clinging to life in this frozen wasteland.
I'm Ian Woodworth. I'm joined by my co-host James Daly, and today we have a very special guest with us, John from Valiant Fox Gaming, here to talk about his 5e campaign setting, Fading Embers. John, welcome to Undercommon Taste.
All right, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, definitely. We've been looking forward to this for a while. So
yeah, this particular interview has been about a month in the making, mostly on our end.
Yeah,
John's had all of his stuff together. It's been all us trying to make everything work.
What's a little chaos amongst friends? But when Ian told me about this in this setting, I love the idea for this setting you made, and we'll get into this. But was super excited. I think there's so much that can be done here, and I was like, yeah, we have to do this. This sounds great.
All right.
So John, let's go ahead and start off with the simple stuff. Can you give us some general introduction? Tell us who you are, what you do. Tell us a little bit about your company and
name, birthday, social security, bank routing number, that kind of stuff.
My mother's maiden name.
Yeah.
All right. I've been a tabletop role player for about 30 years. I'm definitely a forever GM. And I started working on this setting. It had a beta probably somewhere in late middle school that was not great. But in 2014, I moved from New Jersey out to Ohio, and I was playing around with it just sort of as a thought experiment. Like, I'm older, I'm more mature. Like maybe let me see if I can take this old idea and make something that's decent out of it. And then while I was doing that, started running my game online with friends back on the East Coast using Roll20. And so I figured, well, I'm in a new state. There's a whole new 5th edition had just came out, and so I thought, let me see if I can make this work just in the new edition, and we can all we can world build it a little bit together as we figure out the rules and more things come out. And so it's definitely a homebrew setting that's been turned into a campaign setting for lots of people to see and enjoy.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, at the start of a new edition is kind of a great time to just kind of jump in with both feet and go. So yeah, good timing, I guess. As it runs.
Yeah, just total serendipity.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting concept. We're gonna let you go into a little bit of detail on that here in a second. But the thing that I love about the books is the art, because the art in these books is fantastic.
Absolutely,
thank you.
It is phenomenal artwork.
And you talk to most people that get into D&D, and it's the art from the books that have really drawn them in. I'd say at least 2/3 to 3/4 of the people, and that's just me pulling stats out of the thin air. But it is a huge, huge portion of the people that are like, yeah, it was the art from the books that got me into exploring the games. And I think you have done that a great service.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I started one of my good friends. She's an artist, and she was one of the players. And we started it just as a project that both of us were going to do. And at a point, she realized that the scope of what we were building was maybe too much, way too much on her shoulders to provide all of the art. And so she wanted to step back and become one of the artists. And that was when I realized, like, all right, well, we're going to have to do Kickstarter then, because good art costs money. I'd recently watched the Eye of the Beholder documentary, which is all about the history of D&D through the art and the artists.
Yeah.
It's such a great documentary that I knew that I wanted to have really good eye-catching art, and to really try to represent lots of different people in it, more in line with the 5e core book than like second edition AD&D rulebook, like the kinds of people that were portrayed in there. Just so that people can find characters that look like them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that James has started doing with our guests, and I'm going to jump all over your question, James.
No, go for it.
So, what is your real life D&D class? What class would you be in IRL?
I think when I was in my teens and 20s, I was more of a bard from second edition. I love the sneaky stuff, the skill monkey. Like they had access to everything. They had access to all the wizard spells and stuff. Now I think in the last decade, I'm more of like a fat wizard in 5th edition. Certainly less acrobatic than I used to be. Probably a little bit less sneaky. But I've stored up a large repertoire of game master skills,
Nice.
like wizard spells.
Well stated. I love that.
All right. So, could you take a minute to just sort of give the elevator pitch? What is Fading Embers and how it differs from your traditional official published settings?
Right.
The basic premise is you take it used to be a typical D&D fantasy world, and then that world was thrust into a very sudden and unnatural ice age, and the timeline in the setting manual picks up a little over 900 years after that. And so lots of races are extinct, lots of monsters are extinct. The world is cut off from the outer planes, so there's no access to the usual deities in the D&D multiverse, and it centers around one sort of large pocket of habitability that's left, and there's really only one big kingdom, and everything else is powerful city-states and just the wide stretches in between them. Definitely influenced by the old TSR Dark Sun setting in many regards. There as like a post-apocalyptic fantasy world,
and not having the gods also plays into that.
Right.
Yeah, certainly, because with the OSR to be able to use the open gaming license, if you publish it on your own, you can say some things. If you publish it in the DM's Guild, you can say it. You can say everything. I knew that I wanted to go to Drive Through RPG instead of the DM's Guild, so I just kind of had to make my peace with like. There's a large list of like places that I can't talk about, and a lot of them are connected to the planes. And again, it was just a little bit of serendipity, where just how I decided to sort of isolate the world. It just made sense for my meta plot, the whys and wherefores of what the Ice Age, what caused that, and what all the problems are. But the after effect of like. Interplanar travel's not really a thing, so gods and goddesses aren't interfering all the time. It really worked out well, and it's a sacrifice. My best friend was very surprised when he was like, "But you love Planescape. All of your campaigns touch Planescape." Sorry, not this one. Just
sometimes you got to go a different direction. No, but I love this. So for me, hearing this very much had a feel. Way back when we had World Build with us, we were kicking around ideas, and one of the things was like a wasteland with oases of civilization habitation, and a frozen wasteland was one of the ideas we kind of brainstormed and wound up discarding. Like I said, I love that concept, and it kind of has that feel of maybe like if you've watched Avatar, the Last Airbender, where you have the northern and southern water tribes are kind of set up on the poles, or even like the Game of Thrones with the long winters and Beyond the Wall. It kind of has that feel to it, where again, it's cold, it's harsh, it's frozen, It is a struggle to exist, but you can do it. And there's still a weird beauty to be found in the world, but it is a very harsh and dark world. And like I said, I just love that theme, which is weird because I hate being cold. I hate cold elements, but yeah, my favorite animals are cold weather animals. I love cold weather themes. You will find me basking in the sun like a lizard any given day. It's just one of life's irony.
I'm going to blame Fresno for that one.
Yeah, you probably should. I belong on Arrakis. I was a desert creature.
I'm the opposite. I'm very, very sweaty. So the cold is wonderful. So it really worked out that I ended up in Cleveland, Ohio, because the first year I worked on this setting, I didn't see the asphalt of the street I lived on from October to March or April.
Thank you.
So it's really easy to work on the setting here.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I used to be a welder and a sheet metal worker, and so getting into a welding shop in the middle of the summer and it gets up to about 115 degrees in the shop. So yeah, I don't do cold that well either. Anyway, one of the feels that I got reading through the Fading Embers books, because aberrations play a huge role in the setting, and it struck me very much like it had a lot of parallels to the Dresden Files books, especially the later books, where they're actually starting to really get into the creatures from the outside and their interference in the world. Did you draw any influence from the Dresden Files, or was that complete happenstance?
Actually, total happenstance. I know of them. I've never read them.
Okay.
I have many friends who say very good things about them.
Yes, great series.
I think it's just that I have a love of like Lovecraftian mythos.
Okay.
Stuff, and cutting off the setting from the Outer Planes is then you cut out the demons and the devils and the angels and a lot of other things, and so I ended up focusing on like very different monster groups that don't usually end up in as much of a spotlight, like aberrations and the Fae.
Yeah. No, that's great. I love that.
And you can do anything with both of those groups. Like you can do
really
so much with those groups.
Oh yeah,
especially the Fae. You can do anything you want with the Fae.
Yeah.
It's all a question of, do you want it to kind of make sense? If yes, go Fae. If no, go aberration.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
if all you want is a writhing mass of tentacles, aberrations are right there.
Yeah, perfect.
They're wonderful for it.
Yeah,
they don't have to make sense. I don't know how it flies, but it does.
It doesn't know how it flies either. It wills itself to fly, and there it goes.
Well, again, that is the great thing with aberrations. They don't have to obey our laws of physics and reality because they don't belong to our reality. So they just, I ignore your reality and I substitute my own. And okay, it's lore.
Pretty
fine.
much.
That's basically the core of the Lovecraftian mythos. Is I don't understand how this is happening.
Yeah,
like it's just right there.
Exactly. Yep. Love it. So one of our previous guests, Jake Duxon, he uses the OGL to create his own game, Heroes of Taria. And I think you kind of mentioned this a little bit before, but why'd you decide to brand Fading Embers as a 5e supplement rather than as a standalone game?
Definitely partly because the setting was developed in my 5e homebrew.
Okay.
So that was the basis of it. But also, I'm not a very natural salesperson. So tapping into a pre-existing customer base has had a very large appeal for me.
Now, a completely sideball question with this is with the hint of 6E 50, whatever they're going to call the new edition that's apparently knocking on the doorsteps soonish, maybe. Are you going to try to adapt or change that so this fits that better, or are you going to leave it as is and say, hey, because I mean, it's great as it is, and it could stand alone as it. I mean, again, look at this. If you pick it up, it is a wonderful system. It is beautifully done. But are you going to try to further adapt it to as D&D changes it, or are you going to let it stand?
It might depend on how different whatever comes next is.
Okay.
If it's more like, oh, it's really kind of 5.5, like, then some adjustments could be made. If 6th edition is super different, then then I might not want to spend the time adapting it. But yeah, like I've definitely thought about putting out an adaptation for Ancestries and Culture.
Okay.
Going through the races chapter and splitting it all apart to adapt it to that, because there's a lot of good things there to think
You
about.
have some great stuff in your ancestries and your backgrounds and stuff that I love that you put in, and we will brush up on this later, I'm sure. But I mean, what you already had in there was, I thought, very well done, and I was very excited. I'm like, dude, I love this. It's kind of got some beef to it.
Thanks. Yeah, and I'd basically just finished pretty much the whole player's manual when Ancestries and Culture came out. And I was like, wow, I love this, but I also really do not want to go back through and open this back up to tinker with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like many of the sub races sort of are just cultures in a player's manual, and I did add in little like homeland ability lists in the setting manual, so that if you're from whatever city, state, or homeland you're from, there's like 3 minor abilities, and you pick one of them.
Yeah.
And so, like, I was already thinking along those lines, so I think that's why when it came out, it really appealed to me.
And I can definitely, as the person who does all of our write-ups, I can definitely see where you would want to see what the changes are before committing to anything like that, because if it's just a simple go in and rearrange some verbiage, change this phrase to that phrase, that's a simple thing. You can do that with Control-Shift-F and just go through it. But if it's a complete mechanics rework, that's asking an awful lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of game balance to consider and rules to be remade. So cross that river when it gets here.
Right.
No, I totally get that.
And in the meantime, I'll just enjoy and keep building, keep writing more stuff.
Yeah, and like I said, even what you have now, I cannot express enough, is fantastic. And if you didn't change a thing, I would still be in line to grab these books, because the system as you've developed it is absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
So one of the biggest changes to within Fading Embers compared to one of the official published campaign settings is that certain races, classes, and spells have been greatly limited or completely excluded from player options. So, for example, fire magic is extremely rare in your setting. I think it's only one type of cleric that can really handle fire magic.
Divine fire magic, I really reined it in. A lot.
And also, officially, Warlocks can only have a single patron, who is the
that's a big one.
who is the reason for the setting.
Yes.
I'll let you spoil that if you want to, but so why did you decide to make such prohibitions in your setting?
I think first, just knowing that I wanted it to have sort of a post-apocalyptic feel, greater in some regions than others. Like to get post-apocalyptic, you have to have limitations, because if everything's available, then it's not very apocalyptic at all. It's quite before the end of the world. And in a setting where it's going to be snow and ice, if you don't rein in fire magic a little bit, then the parties aren't going to have too big of a problem.
Just everyone walking around with their personal space heater be like, "What? It's magic."
Yeah, like, what? It's fine. It's easy.
Yeah, because create bonfire is a cantrip.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. Yep. And so I decided to rein in specifically divine fire. And there's reasons in the meta plot, but just within the setting, yeah, there's this little island city-state nation, and they've always had they've always worshipped a fire deity. And when the Great Frost happened, that's when all the sudden ice age began. They just sort of switched to a new fire deity and kept on going, and everybody else lost fire magic. And so the World Hearth has sort of cornered the market on it for various reasons, and they're not a proselytizing faith. It's just sort of like a, hey, I just want to warm the world. I'm doing my best, and don't even pray to me. Like, they don't even answer prayers from people who aren't like on their island, because otherwise, I mean, who would pray to anything else in a world like that?
Right.
They would, if they would respond.
This kind of gives me a bit of I'm gonna summon a terrible movie, and I apologize, but Kevin Costner's Waterworld. People loved it. I didn't think the movie was that great, but you have that resource scarcity, or even something along the lines of Mad Max, where you've got this resource scarcity. And I love that that's kind of, there's a feel of that, particularly with heat and different things, because it is, as you said, it's post-apocalyptic and it's cold. And so, yeah, sources of heat and light and things like that are going to be kind of cloistered. So I like how that's there. And again, kind of just building up and seeing this with my own imagination, because no matter what system or books you have, the players and the DM's imaginations leak through, and each story in game's individual. But yeah, I was definitely getting the feel of these kind of starting to seep through.
Yeah, and then, because I limited divine fire magic, I decided to leave arcane fire magic be. And so then, as I just sort of progressed logically with stuff, it seemed like, well, then probably sorcerers and wizards would become pretty popular people in the world. And wizards need to learn stuff, but sorcerers kind of just need to be born. So, like noble classes and politicians and leaders start intermarrying with sorcerers, and fast forward however many centuries, and what you get in the core lands where most of the population still lives are most of those places are ruled by a sorceress nobility caste who just sort of cornered the market over generations,
as you're going to do, and that's perfect. I love that,
as one would do. And it's one of the ways that corruption is a big theme in the setting, even political corruption, because along the way they not only managed to make the people in charge are all sorcerers, but they develop a cultural taboo against wizardry.
Yeah,
because who wants that competition?
That's right.
But also at the same time, wizards have necromancy, and sorcerers don't have necromancy, and so that you can also, you can give them that out if you want, to make them a little bit less politically like pure evil, but like something that, like, well, yeah, people are scared of necromancy, like certainly just the general populace.
And I love that the normal D&D trope is, the scorn from wizards to a sorcerer, because, I've spent time and I've studied and I've learned and I've earned this power. Someone who's born with it. And now it's kind of flipped. Well, like, yeah, we're born with it. This is our birthright. And you're going to read books and try to copy us, pleb, So I like that flip too.
Yeah. And that, like, well, we're born this way. It's very natural.
Yeah.
Wizardry, you read a book and then you hold it in your head for a little bit and then you forget it. Seems weird.
Yeah.
Seems unnatural. And then along with that, because warlocks are so rare, I think in like population wise in a typical fantasy world. And on the world of Nyth, where Fading Embers is set, as you said, there's only one Warlock patron available, and so that like shrinks the overall number of Warlocks even more. And then, but then I was looking side by. If you put Warlocks and Wizards side by side, there's a lot of overlap in their spell lists, and then they can both have special magic books. They can both have familiars, and so within the setting, I decided like that kind of gets caught up with this taboo against wizardry, is that people don't really, Warlocks are so rare, people don't even know what they are. They just assume that they're wizards.
Nice, I love that.
And most most uneducated people wouldn't know much about either, and so like there's so much overlap that they often get confused and they get blamed for they get blamed for the actions of the other and vice versa.
Yeah. Right, but and one of the things that I really enjoy is that despite all of those restrictions, there's a huge amount of expanded player options.
Absolutely, yes.
If my count was right, you had 23 new subclasses for all of the core classes. You have additional spells. You have 4 new races. You have new sub race options within the races. You have expanded spell lists, especially for the sorcerers. See here, what else? Let me find my list. New backgrounds. With all of these wonderful, and they're all very well done.
They are extremely well done.
One of the questions that I have, though, is if you were running this game and someone came to you with a from the player's handbook class race combo, would that fit in your world, or would you be like,
probably would fit. Certainly most of the classes would fit. Any class from an already published thing would fit as long as it didn't break kind of those two main class things that have been that have been reined in. If it's a Warlock, you have to go with the Unborn Majesty, and if you have Divine Magic, and you want to have Fire Magic, then if you're a Cleric, your domain has to be the domain of the World Hearth. And if you're something else like a Paladin or a Ranger or a Monk or Druid who wants Fire Magic, then you could go with whatever sort of circle or subclass archetype you want, as long as you just make your homeland the island of Bakau-Gera. But everything else is totally workable. My own game, like some people helped me play test the new stuff. The Paladin was a Paladin of Valor the first time around, and the Ranger was a Hunter. So we definitely use that. For the races, it would be a no. So I did completely sort of retool each race in our player's manual, even elves, dwarves, sort of everything. Some of that was just little tweaks that I kind of had always wanted to see. One thing that you might not have noticed was that that nobody really lives quite as long as they used to. I basically shortened the overall lifespan for pretty much every race, just as a side effect of how terrible the age that they're living through is.
And that makes sense. And again, if it's this bad, and it's your average lifespan, and there's more monsters, or again, there's more things die. That makes sense. So
yeah, and so some of it was that, and then some of it was, what? How about I just definitely retool, just tweak all of the races, and that way, and just say, hey, like these are the this is like, if you're a half orc, use the half orc in my player's manual and not the player's handbook, just so that people only have to look in one place, so that they don't get confused about which book their pre-existing race would be in.
Okay.
And I like
that
everyone's on the same
makes things
page.
easier for everyone.
Yeah. I like that your overall changes to 5e is rather minimal. Again, you've pulled back your divine fire magic, you've changed obviously a bit of the setting. Everything else seems to work, but where you do have your hard rules, like I said, with your characters and your races and stuff, you've put in so much work and so much detail. I actually think I prefer what you present in your books towards the oversimplified version in current 5e. If I had to pick between the two, I would definitely go in your direction. I like that more complex, in-depth character creation personally. I understand why 5e has done what they've done. They've done great where they've made it far more accessible to people.
Certainly.
That said, you are not unaccessible. It's just there is more to work with, but I enjoy that. So yeah, absolutely love what you've done.
Thanks. Yeah, I like getting specific, and then I was able to build the setting into the character creation, particularly places like with the elves and the dwarves. Like, I don't exactly need to reinvent the wheel, but all of my sub races for elves are based just on the setting. There's the setting map sort of looks like a Mediterranean Sea map, and the little southern continent that's visible on it. In that place, elves ended up fighting with humans as they were both migrating towards the equator. The humans lost, and now there's 2 elven city-states down there, and the elves did not enjoy the war that they had to fight back then, and they've kept the humans under wraps since then. So these are extremely evil societies that have slave castes.
Right.
So Southern Elf is a subrace, and then in the North, I decided to try something totally crazy, and the elves made peace with the dwarves. They said, "Hey, the world is freezing. Can we move in with you? We'll bring all of our stuff and we'll share it with you forever." And the dwarves decided, sure, and so they moved in together and started creating a new, just sort of a whole new culture.
Now we have Delves.
Yeah, and now we have, and then I made Dwelfs. Decided not to name them that. Certainly,
I'm kind of glad. I'm kind of glad that you didn't, because
yeah,
because of the memes around the Dwelfs. It's because the joke race as presented is, we take all of the limitations of both races and just sort of slap them together.
Yeah.
And what you came up with instead is actually really, really cool.
It really is, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, and it almost didn't happen. So they're called the Grand Cities, and yeah, it took a lot of brainstorming and rewriting to figure out like what a civilization of elves and dwarves living in harmony, like trying very hard to create a very nice isolated socialist utopia. Because who cares if it's an ice age if you live inside a really warm dwarven mountain?
Yeah, seriously.
You have like the dwarves and elves are great at making stuff. Combine their they just sort of combine all of their strengths, and they could build this wonderful civilization.
Kind of makes me want to play Purpose.
and at the point, my wife's an academic professor, and so she does research. She does tons of writing and editing and rewriting. So she's my developmental editor as well. And towards the end of the setting manual, she said, "Why can't dwarves, like, there are half elves and there are half orcs and stuff, like, why can't there be a half dwarf, half elf?" And I just thought, like, well, I hadn't thought to actually make that. But then I thought, like, if there's ever been a setting for D&D where that could organically happen, the Grand Cities is definitely the place to try it.
Yeah.
And so for those listening, they're called Foundlings. They come in Hearthblessed or Starblessed, which just means they'll either have warm. They always have metallic colored skin, and the Hearthblessed have the warm golds and coppers and bronzes, and the Starblessed have the silvers and the steels and the irons. And even within the setting, they're an extremely new race. That they've only they haven't even been appearing for an entire century as of right now, and so found the word foundling is like, oh no, here's this poor infant or orphan, let me bring them in. And so it wasn't like that they were abandoned. It was just this oh my god, look at this incredible unexpected treasure that we found, like, let's cherish it. And that the existence of foundlings really sort of solidifies what the Grand Cities have built. And then if a game master wants to poke holes in my happy socialist utopia, then there's the opportunity for the ultra conservative traditionalist elements in a culture like that to really be driven in to very negative heights. Fighting against that, like, oh my god, no, it's an abomination. Why? Like, this is proof that we never should have done this.
Now, with the Foundlings, you bring up the Hearthblessed and the Starblessed, and this brings up two questions for me. One, reading through these kind of reminds me of some of the old Fallout talents you could have. You had Night Person and a Day something.
Solar
powered.
I was
wondering, solar powered, yes. I was wondering if you'd pulled in any inspiration from any of those other games with them.
I didn't actually. Okay. I'm not sure exactly how I settled on metallic skin for them, and then I just knew that I wanted to have two sub races so that people had some choices that they could make, and then everything just sort of worked off of there.
Awesome. And then
just from like, warm colors and cold colors.
Yeah, no, I like it. And then because someone's going to pull up, there's going to be a rules lawyer at some point, and you mentioned specifically with the Hearthblessed that they get their advantages whenever there is sunlight, whether or not they can see it, which is a great rule. So my mind first popped up, well, what happens in an eclipse? Does that affect the lore or the magic in any way? Or, because that's going to get asked by a table. If not by me, then by someone like me. So I wasn't sure if
I would
affect your characters or not.
Yeah, I would say that would affect.
Okay.
I think that would be a Hearthblessed Foundling.
Yeah,
like,
so
this is a bad unexpected situation for you.
So yeah,
again, hopefully it's a rare event.
Yeah, let's hope. Or if your BBEG happens to be a Foundling, if you're going to go that direction, maybe the Foundlings, they hit a certain age and maybe they go mad or something. Again, because they're new, we don't know a lot about them.
Yeah. Even the Grand Cities, even the Foundlings, they don't know how long they live.
Right, or maybe if they gain power and you just have a particularly bad ilk of a group of these, and this is going to be your chance to move. And again, you kind of get stuff like that with Avatar and things like that. But that whole celestial event it's always a grand trope to throw into things. And so I wasn't sure if you had considered that with these or not specifically.
I hadn't considered it, but I like the idea.
Nice.
Now, see, reading through the GM's book, because I read through the GM's book and James read through the player's book. Just reading through that, I would have actually come to a different conclusion because, and this may be spoiler and I may have to cut it, but because the sun isn't real. The sun is a construct.
Oh, see, I did not get that in the player's book.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, there's chapter in the Game Master's manual that that dishes all of the secrets of the meta plot, because
Nice.
I built a very complete rule. So there's reasons for everything that has happened.
Oh, that's
And
exciting.
yeah, there's a sidebar deep in there that's like, so how broken is this world? And it's pretty broken.
It's all in a snow globe.
but it's designed to be a broken world.
Yeah.
And it's designed to even be broken further.
Nice.
Like I'm gonna keep putting out material, adventures, some campaign modules, but I'm not gonna put out a like, this is the timeline as it progresses.
Okay.
For people, like their characters, their tables, that's the canon story arc. So I have some sidebars offering up different possibilities for, like, hey, do you want to break the world even more? Because it should be easy. They're post-apocalyptic era like settings they walk a fine line of survival, and so like I wanted game masters to not be afraid to just go ahead and break it further if it's what your story says should happen.
Yeah,
have
your campaign be to go and break the rest of the artifacts so that the world can finally end.
Yeah. It's just, you know what?
We're just done. We want it to be over.
We're putting ourselves out of our misery, and maybe the next one will be better.
Yeah. My players, they've collectively gone the opposite. They wanna save the world.
That would be
oh,
sorry, go ahead.
So we had a campaign that lasted about 6 years, and I don't know, maybe it lasted about 10 years in game. And so then what they did was they founded a secret order to help save the world. And now we've skipped 20 or 30 years into the future, and they've made all level 1 new characters, all level 1, and they're acolytes of the order that they founded.
Nice.
Because they figured, like, well, it's a really broken world, so if we want to save it, it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
So it'll take many generations to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And there was somebody in their backstory that they had, like, the first acolyte they tried to train, they told them too much too quickly, and they completely went crazy. And that would be somebody that's basically somebody who would have been like, let's just break it all and put this world out of its misery. Yes. Like, right. What do you mean the sun's not real? I can't take this.
I was going to say that would make an amazing either cleric domain and or paladin oath, be like the oath or the domain of euthanasia. And just, you know what? It's bad. Let's go ahead and let it crumble and die, and whatever comes next. But we're just suffering this way, and that would be a release.
Would work well if it were a dustman from Sigil somehow slipped in.
Yeah.
This is proof we're all already dead.
Yes.
So we talked a bit at length about the Foundlings. My personal favorite race that you presented were the Lichen-blooded.
Yeah, those were really awesome too.
They were just really cool. But I also loved the aesthetic of the Yeti.
Yes.
They were just so much fun.
Yeah, they're neat. I like the idea. I've always liked the idea of like a species that is big and tough and strong, but that their culture is not does not lend itself to, like, I just want to make a fighter or a barbarian.
Right.
Because I mean, just personally, I'm not much of a min-maxer. When I make characters, and so and I made so many different rules for like all the things that you listed. Is that I don't want to. I tend to try to make it not too powerful. Like I don't want to put out a rule set that is going to might break somebody's game. So I didn't want to make a race that was just going to be the ultimate barbarian. And so that we went very, like, not warlike, very at one with nature. They get the druid cantrip.
Yeah, they kind of have the furbolg feel to them for 5e, which I like.
Yeah, I think so.
One of the things that Ian and I joked about forever ago, and I don't know if he remembers this, but we joked about the possibility of having like the orc fighter or orc barbarian, but in his downtime he does bob and lace and just kind of sits there and stares at.
Well,
yeah, so I mean
that was where my orc cleric, my orc forge cleric came from.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yeah, that was where that concept came from, is because he's a tinker. He goes around from town to town fixing things with the mending cantrip.
Yeah.
That's good work.
Yeah,
that's just what he does. He carries his little portable forge with him so that he can do some metal work. Because some things are just too big to fix with mending, and so he does actual repairs as well. But that's what he does. He walks from rural town to rural town, helping farmers fix plows and wagon axles and what happens.
Yeah, you can't tell me that's not God's work.
Sharpen scissors and patches pots and
these things need to be done.
Yeah, exactly.
Adventurers are good at it.
Like if I was a cleric, I would be in real life. I would be that kind of cleric. Just kind of like in the community, just helping out. Here's some food. Here, I'll help you mow your lawn. I'll help you do it. Yeah, that's God's work. Going out and helping the people. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to get the goodness off me now. Just sitting in my lane.
Okay. Oh yeah. Sorry. The lichen blooded. I at the very start, I was hoping to find a way to make lycanthropes in general, playable for PCs, and it just seemed I couldn't quite get the game balance to work. And so I thought about, well, what about Blade's a half vampire, so how about people that are lichen blooded? And for listeners, it means that the one of the parents or grandparents of the PC was an infected lycanthrope at some point, and the curse just sort of taints their family sometimes, and so then they're immune to lycanthropy for starters, because if they're not, that really opens up a whole box of headache potentially for the player and the game master.
What happens if a rat lichen blooded gets bit by a werewolf?
Yeah.
It's like, they become a werewolf rat?
it would be a whole mess. So in the rules, they're just immune to the curse,
right?
No,
of other creatures, but they have a slight allergy to silver, and they are potentially very charmable by true lycanthropes of that kind. Of if they're a lichen-blooded werecat person, like if there's a real werecat or a more powerful, like a werecat lord, then that party member could easily end up charmed by them, like outside of combat.
Your master lycanthrope is going to be able to control the pack and everything. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's just makes good mechanical sense. I love it.
Yeah, and people love were creatures. Yeah. Like definitely people jumped at the chance.
Yeah, I would. I mean, really,
to play some of them, and they were fun to make stuff for, like a feat. I made some feats for each of the new races that I made. I thought, well, now I need to make at least one feat for everybody. And so for them, there's one where they can sort of bring the curse more to the surface.
Okay.
And sort of for a short while become much more like the pure trait of their people.
Okay.
Of their type of lichen, and then just lichens in general. It really plays into the survival theme of an apocalyptic setting, and the horror theme that sort of runs underneath Fading Embers. With a lot of the aberrations and the Lovecraftian feeling, like lycanthropes are definitely horror based.
Yeah.
And now we've said lycanthrope enough. I want to make a druid with like a green beard, and we can call him Lycanthrope. And maybe he has like a little bit of photosynthesis going on, like through this region here. And that's
bit
my
of
pun
cough.
for the day. Yeah, that's my pun for the day. I'm going with it. And Ian's trying not to facepalm.
He's got this strange fungus algae conglomeration all over his face.
It'd be perfect for Circle of Spores, really, because I mean, you have the
I
lichen.
was
and
just
the
going to
moss
say,
and
yeah.
Dude, I've named my Circle of Spore dude. He's going to be a lycanthrope.
that might be an NPC in my game.
Nice.
All right, so we're running a little long. So what's the next big project going to be? Is there another big project in the works?
Definitely. At the moment, the very next one is small. It's just going to be an adventure for mid-level for sort of like tier 2 level characters. It's called Trouble in the Sourwood, and there's a link. There's a link to my landing page. My ValiantFoxGaming.com has links to all of my places. And so there's a link to there if people want to be notified when the Kickstarter eventually launches.
And we will put a link to that in the show
Yeah.
notes, so you can find it in the show notes.
Eventually, once I do 1 or 2 adventures, then I'll start doing a big campaign module for each of the monster classes, the monsters categories that that I like to focus on. So the first one will be all about the Fae.
Oh.
And then the second one will be all about undead.
Okay.
And that sort of thing.
Okay.
I like it.
Excellent.
Yeah, I will definitely look forward to that. Just like I said, as much work as you put in with your character creation for your races and classes, your monster manual stuff's going to be amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, the Game Master's Manual really got it really ended up much bigger than I'd realized it was going to. My bias is showing in it.
And that's why I only got through the GM's book.
Yeah, understandable.
All right. I think I'm done on my end. James, are you done?
Yeah, no, I've got my questions in too. So,
all right. Well then, one of the things that we love to do with our guests is to roll some dice on our random generator table in a segment we call Monster Mashup. So, John, if you have your dice ready,
I do indeed.
We will go ahead and get started with that. Let me grab a pencil. All right. So the first thing we're going to need is a D4 roll for locomotion.
All right.
Steam powered.
A 3.
A 3. It burrows.
I like it.
Oh, burrows again. All right.
All right. Next up is a D6 roll for what does it eat?
All right. 5.
5. Living meat.
I love it.
Oh no! I just listened to this episode.
I'm not doing it. I'm being Have this time.
Oh.
It's going to be tiny, and I'm being Have.
Well, let's just say that, something like that would be appropriate for this setting.
That's true. Would be. As we get through, I might want to make a small change to one of the rolls. I will bring it up after it's rolled, though, so please continue.
Okay.
So we've got something burrowed. We have something that's eating living meat. So far, I'm great with this.
All right. So next up is going to be a D8 roll for size.
6.
6. It's huge.
Okay.
So we're going to be having something along the lines of a purple worm, maybe?
Possibly.
A frost worm?
It's leaning that way.
Again, depending on what we go, I have some ideas, but I kind of want to hold them back. So bear with me.
Okay.
I think I have an idea.
Okay. Next up is another D8 roll for social organization.
Right. 3.
3. Brood, 1 parent plus young.
Okay, I'm good with that.
A brood of huge-sized ones.
Yeah. And again, probably as they mature, at the point the young would leave, so they're not always found.
The young aren't going to be huge.
Yeah, they'll just be like large.
Yeah, they'll like hatch out at medium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. Okay. So here's going to be the thing that is going to tell us whether we can put it in your setting or not. Uh, next up is a D10 roll for native environment.
All right. It is a 9.
A 9. Swamps, bogs, marshes.
Yeah, and this is what I was going to
Ooh.
bring up. Let's, if you guys are willing, we can straight override and make this a sort of ice or tundra creature. Something that would burrow through the ice, burrow through the tundra.
We can do that, yeah.
Sure.
Talking about
it's an option on the list. We can totally do that.
Yeah, some of the aberrations that you think. I was going to ask mid-interview is, you don't have a lot of sea creatures, and for a sea creature to come up from underneath where there'd be pockets of water or oceans or lakes to burrow up through the ice and then breach and then just cause chaos on the surface and kind of come back in, maybe like a narwhal or a polar bear or like some sort of giant whale would totally work.
That's true. Yeah, you could burrow through ice.
Yeah.
Wreak havoc on ships. Even in the setting, there's an upper sea,
Okay.
which is completely frozen solid.
I was gonna.
And so
Yeah.
there's ice boats and ice fishermen and stuff up there, and yeah, there must be some big monsters up there that can burrow up through the ice to get the unsuspecting.
Maybe they
fisher.
can hear like whatever walking above, and so they like haunt trade routes because they hear so much activity, and then they just come up and hey, there's obviously food up there, so they just come,
Yeah.
So again,
Is
a possibility.
Is there something else on the chart?
There's
something else.
Oh yeah, we've got a bit more.
We still got a couple more rolls to go.
Okay.
I just wanted to throw that out as a possibility because I think we could get this to fit really well with your location and your setting.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm okay with changing this to Arctic / tundra as the setting, as the native environment. Okay. Next is a D12 roll for method of defense.
Oh, that's right. All right. 3.
3, a venomous bite.
I'm liking it.
Interesting.
So yeah, it pops up, it bites, and maybe that bite paralyzes or stuns, so it can drag them back down.
Yeah. Even if it's just a fast-acting poison that doesn't necessarily need to do poison damage, just needs to slow you or
maybe
possibly paralyze you for a minute or even would be more than long enough.
All it does is it inflicts the poison condition. So all of your attacks, attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws are made with disadvantage. Just that in and of itself
will wreck your day.
Yeah.
Okay, liking it so far.
All right.
Okay. Next is a D20 roll for quirks.
All right, a 1.
Okay, can lift 20 times their body weight.
Oh,
I love it.
That makes.
Yeah. Well, now they have to hunt ships,
and especially where they're busting up through the ice because they got to move that ice, right?
So I guess if it's a brood, so a parent and the young, then the parent leads the way up through the ice and does at least that first connection with the underside of a ship.
Yeah, and tries to capsize it. And then,
or even if they do a full breach and try to slam and maybe a shockwave to knock things over that way, and then up and
as people fall overboard, they become prey for the medium to large size young.
Yeah.
Okay.
That way people can have a little bit more of a more diversity in what they have to fight. Like, okay, they're only medium sized. That's cool. That's cool, guys. I think we can do that. Why is that one bigger? Okay, there's a big one too.
Okay. So now we get to make it weird.
Did we roll number of limbs?
That's not on the chart anymore.
Oh, okay. My apologies. That works.
Yeah. I replaced that one with the native environment check.
Okay, perfect.
So now we get to make it weird.
Hey, weird.
So if I could get a D100 roll, please.
All right. A 7.
7. Its young are parasitic and mimic another species.
Oh my word.
What if they mimic drowning or falling people? So people are going to rescue them and bring them up on board, and then they have that poisonous bite, and they can latch onto it.
Yeah, maybe the very young ones, the medium-sized ones, easily mimic humanoids that would be the humanoids that would need ships to cross the seas.
So they could almost have maybe a frozen mermaid type look. Dude, a giant mermaid or merpeople. And so like the adults are colossal, and then the young look more humanoid. And so they're going to look like they're drowning, and then whatever happens, and then they come up, and then maybe after they've eaten so much or, hit a point, they have like a molt, and they shed back to them, and they get back to the ice and the water and try to go back under or something.
Yeah, and the parasitic, the medium-sized young could even I guess parasitic sort of implies some sort of control, maybe possibly like a little bit of a charm.
Okay,
that they can use once they've been fished out of the water, and they can try to charm someone and sort of sabotage the boat.
It's a siren's call.
A little bit.
They have a siren's
call.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they sing out, and someone on that ship hears it and is entranced by them.
Dude,
and brings them in. It's like, look, here's this person who is adrift in the sea, and I have saved them, and brings them onto the boat. And then they end up, whenever everyone goes to sleep that night, going into a feeding frenzy.
Yes.
Yep. Or sends out their call to the mom or the dad.
Yeah. So the rest of the brood can come.
Who then burrows up with the rest of the brood to start breaking things.
These things are terrifying. I love it.
Yes.
We come up with some horrible monsters. We really do.
All right.
Yeah, I need to get my party out on a boat now.
All right, James, do you want to do the second one, or do you want me to do the second one?
Go ahead and do the second one. I've got my stuff, but it's packed up.
All right.
And I rolled last week, so.
Let's see what we got. 83. What is 83? This is appropriate. Never dies of old age, just keeps getting bigger.
Nice. I love it.
Oh, wow.
I like that. And then maybe because the environment's so cold, their growth after a certain point is slowed, and that's why they're only huge and not colossal shaped yet.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where once you hit a certain point, you physically can't consume enough to keep up that metabolism, and you end up just freezing to death.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, I'm liking these. I am liking these.
Okay. So let us go ahead and recap what we've got. So it burrows, it eats living meat, it is huge in size. Its social organization is a brood of a parent plus young. We have decided to make the native environment Arctic/tundra. It has a venomous bite. It can lift 20 times its body weight. Its young are parasitic and can mimic another race, and they never die of old age. They just keep getting bigger. So, what are we going to call it?
Gives the option to make a truly old one with like a legendary status.
Mm-hmm.
I am terrible at naming things, but I'm going to take a stab at Frost Maidens.
Well, we already have Frost Maidens.
Do we have Frost Maidens already? Okay, I was kind of trying to go with the whole mermaid theme.
Well, I mean, because there is a whole adventure path called Rime of the Frost Maiden.
Okay, that's correct.
That's
That's
a very good
probably
point.
Yeah,
probably where I was picking that up from. Oh, okay.
they're connected to Burr Hags, I think. I can't
Okay.
remember the lore on them, but yeah. Um,
Maybe something with like, well, crone makes it does. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds more
I was
like a
thinking
hag.
something along the line of something like, again, we have foundlings because that would work well, or like an orphan, or something you need to rescue and pull in, because that's what a lot of people, they're going to see this, they're going to be drawn to it, and they're going to have to want to rescue it, and they're going to want to bring it in. We can call them stowaways. Not quite right, but
Oh, yeah,
close.
yeah, like the youngest ones.
That could be what the sailors refer to them as.
Yeah, definitely. Like, oh nope, don't get that one out of the water.
That's
Somebody
stowaway.
stop him. That's a stowaway.
Yeah,
I've
Love
been through this before.
might even be one of those things where the enchantment is so strong that the only way to save the ship is to actually boot them overboard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe an ice
sacrifice
banshee?
the crewmen to the
Oh,
siren.
whoever's been compromised.
Yeah,
Just get rid of them.
Jonah's Folly.
Yeah, probably. That would definitely be the way to go.
I actually kind of like that, but Jonah's Folly, because, with the whole thing of Jonah and the whale, they threw him over to try to appease the sea, because that's what they thought. And if someone's steering the ship, it would be a folly for that. And again, Ice Banshee or something along those lines, something that calls out or sings.
Like a deep folly.
Yeah. Maybe something with the term diva, like an opera diva that sings.
Yeah, it's not coming to me naturally.
yeah. It's see here. I kind of want to include Siren in it because it is doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's just I can't find a good adjective to put in the front of it.
I mean, just call them Sirens of the Deep.
Deep Siren.
Deep Sirens, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the big ones must be down pretty far at first.
I love it.
And I
like these a lot. These are going to be fun.
Yeah, it's bringing me back to some of the earlier seasons of the Lovely Craftians podcast. It's a Call of Cthulhu actual play podcast, and
cool.
And in there, one of the characters from season 1 picks up an artifact and ends up being turned into a siren.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
And the sirens, I don't know if it's a Call of Cthulhu lore thing or if it's just the game mistress's thing, but those sirens also don't die of old age; they just keep getting bigger. And so,
nice.
And so, like, there's sirens down in the bottom of the Marianas Trench that are like 120 feet long.
Oh wow, love
cool.
it.
Yeah, it's great.
No, I love it.
It's like the
vibes like that. It's great.
Yeah, like the great fairies in Breath of the Wild, but if they were evil and had mouthful of razor sharp poisonous teeth.
Yeah,
I love it.
I love it.
I really do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was
well done, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That was a hard one.
All right. So the other thing we like to ask our guests is to give a shout out to someone else in the community. It can be a podcaster, a content creator, musician, artist, just whoever, somebody in the TTRPG sphere. So who would you like to give shout out to today?
All right. I'd like to give a shout out to one of the artists who has worked with me, Van J. Levant. Their Twitter handle is @LevantArt. They're an artist. They're Ukrainian, and they live in Kyiv, and have been there through all of it thus far. I believe they're still there, and they are taking commissions still. So I would encourage anybody to check them out at @LevantArt, or if anyone ends up on the Valiant Fox Gaming website, I have an artist's gallery page there, where every artist who I've worked with is represented there with a piece that they've done, and they all have buttons with their name on it. And if you click the button, it will take you to to a page of their choice.
Fantastic.
So you can also find them there.
All right. And last but not least, we're going to open the floor to you to plug yourself and your stuff. So tell us where we can find you, where we can find your products, and the floor is yours.
Where do we go to throw money at you?
All right. ValiantFoxGaming.com is my website. There's a product section that will link. It'll link to my stuff at DriveThruRPG, where it's PDF or print on demand. And more recently, I've released a handful of digital token sets on the Roll20 marketplace. Those also can link straight from my products page. And on the main page, there's a link to the landing page for my next thing, which is the adventure Trouble in the Sourwood. There's a coming soon button that goes to the landing page, where it has a preview of the cover art for the adventure by Laszlo Pinter, another artist I've worked with. And there's a button way at the bottom to join my email list so that you'll be notified when the Kickstarter launches. And if you do so, it will also give you a code so that if you want to get the PDF bundle of all 3 manuals from DriveThru, it will take additional money off of that.
Snazzy.
Excellent. All right. Well, John,
and that's my current goal.
Well, John, thank you so very much for joining us tonight on Undercommon.
Yes, it's been a blast.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for taking the time to read through so much of my material. I know there's a lot.
It's a lot. It was amazingly well put together, and thank you for that. Like I said, just the amount of work and what you have there was absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed going through it, so thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for listening and watching tonight. If you have any comments, suggestions, or ideas, please send us an email, undercommontaste@gmail.com, or send us a direct message through our Twitter account @UCTHomebrew. We are also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. Just search Undercommon Taste. We are also on Patreon, patreon.com/undercommontaste. That's where we put all of our write-ups. That's where our Deep Siren write-up is going to be here in about a week or so. Most of our write-ups are free. Some of them are patron exclusive. Our most recent patron exclusive write-up has been for our Urban Ranger variant class. And all of our patron exclusive content is available to everyone regardless of tier. So if you want to come and help support the show financially, please consider becoming a patron. Finally, we also have a Discord. You can find a link to the Discord in the show notes, and we would love to have you come and chat with us.
Yes, absolutely. You can find our podcast wherever you find your podcasts. We're on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Google. As always, please subscribe and give us a like and review. This helps increase our visibility and lets us know what you want to hear more of.
Next week, we are finally going to get back into Gehenna and wrap up that plane. I know we were going to do it a couple weeks ago, and then we had Dr. Mary instead, and honestly, Dr. Mary is more entertaining than Gehenna. So
yes, by far.
Gehenna is kind of the opposite end. It's a volcanic, bleak place.
Yeah.
But we'll see you next week in Gehenna. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you then.
Happy gaming.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Undercommon Taste. You can find links to all of our social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, as well as our Patreon and Discord channel in the show notes. Our theme song is Massacre Anne, written and performed by Mary Crowell and used with permission. You can find more of her work at marycrowell.bandcamp.com or on Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Mary C. Crowell. Our logo was illustrated by David Sutherland. You can find him on Instagram at willex_73 or on DeviantArt at deviantart.com/David Sutherland. Thanks again for listening. Stay safe. We'll see you again next week.